It's time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France with our very own Florence Villeminot. Hi, Flo. So today we are going to climb aboard an institution here in France. It's a very important part of the landscape that's been connecting parts of France for some 40 years. This is, of course, France's cherished bullet train, the TGV.
Let's dive right in with our acronyme du jour, TGV, which stands for Train à grande vitesse, and it is operated by another acronym, the SNCF, which is the French National Rail Service. Now, the very first voyage of a TGV was inaugurated by President François Mitterrand. It was in September 1981, and you can see this footage from the time. And fun fact, the very first train had a name. It was Patrick, which was the name of the son of the very first TGV driver. You might be able to see in the footage as well. Now, at the time, the train traveled at 270 kilometers an hour, and this flashy orange train really was the symbol of French engineering prowess, and it really revolutionized modern train travel here in France and decentralized France by really shrinking the map. Far-flung cities were now just a few hours away, and really, before these trips used to require a day or even 2 days, and now it was just a couple of hours.
Right, and the TGV became an instant hit. I mean, in the past 40 years, it's transported some 3 billion passengers, and over the years, the network's expanded it even more across the country.
That's right. These days, the network connects some 230 destinations, so mostly in France, but also some international destinations as well. And trains typically operate at a speed of 320 kilometers an hour. That's about 200 miles per hour. So it's often faster, more convenient, and not to mention safer than taking a plane or driving somewhere. Take a trip between Paris and Marseille. So that's about 770 kilometers. It takes a little bit over 3 hours on the train. If you drive, it takes about 8 hours, and not to count all the stops you have to do as well. So it's a very popular network, and each year more and more people use it. In 2023, for instance, a record number of 122 million people took the TGV, and that was up 4% from 2022, which was already a historic year.
And to face all of this growing demand, the SNCF is actually about to roll out a new train that'll carry even more passengers.
That's right. It also has a name. It's called the TGV M. So it's being hailed as the TGV, the train of the future. M stands for modular because it's more flexible in its layout and its design, and you can see it here. It's got it's very flashy. You can see it here. It's a double-decker, a bar car, for instance. It has high-speed internet, and this streamlined version of the bullet train promises to be more spacious, more comfortable, and it's got an extra wagon, which means that it can transport more passengers, 20% more passengers. It's also 20% more energy efficient, thanks to its design, its aerodynamic design, and its white color, which you might have noticed. That means that it will reflect light and make it more energy efficient. It's really come a long way since the iconic orange TGV of the 1980s.
Il a bien changé, hein? Voilà, il a un long nez.
Ça manque plus de couleurs.
Si ça va améliorer les problèmes de la pollution et tout, pour moi, c'est très bien.
Flo, you're talking about the different colors, and these new trains are actually part of a green agenda that the government's trying to push through, but part of a move to keep the SNCF on track. France's state-owned railway company has a lot of debt, and it's facing competition in both foreign and private enterprises.
Absolutely, and the SNCF is really betting on these cutting-edge double-decker trains, which will serve domestic destinations and international destinations. And it's also planning on expanding its routes in the coming decade, including to some other destinations abroad. And another thing the SNCF wants to do is to continue to export its TGV technology, which it already exports to some 25 countries worldwide, including Spain, Italy, South Korea, Taiwan, Morocco, and the United States. So that's what the SNCF plans to do in the coming decade with its TGV. But it must be said that the TGV doesn't only have fans. Critics in France say that the infatuation with high-speed travel means that there's been a certain neglect of regional lines which connect smaller towns and villages and keep them alive. And so there's been a certain desertification of certain parts of the country. And another complaint that comes up is the price of taking a TGV train, which can be quite pricey at times, although some people say it's worth paying a little bit more for a cleaner mode of transportation.
Éthiquement parlant, je préfère prendre le train plutôt que l'avion. Je suis un petit peu engagée écologiquement parlant, donc je préfère toujours prendre le train.
Même si le train est plus cher.
même si le train est plus cher.
Ça reste encore un moyen de transport relativement, on va dire, bon marché, je trouve, quand même, par rapport à certains. Si vous faites le coup avec une voiture et tout ce qui court avec...
Now, if you've taken a TGV recently, you might have noticed the conductor telling you just how green the mode of transportation is. If you travel by TGV, you'll pollute 50 times less than if you take a car and 80 times less than if you take a plane. Now, those are SNCF numbers, and they might be slightly exaggerated, but it is certainly a green mode of transportation.
All right, just before we go, a little bit of train trivia. What do you think is the world's fastest public train?
It is, drum roll, not the TGV, Jeannie. It is actually China's Shanghai Maglev, which has a maximum commercial speed of 460 kilometers an hour, so that's 285 miles per hour. However, France's TGV is the longtime holder of the world speed record for a conventional train, and you can see footage of when it broke that record. It was in April 2007, so it set an astonishing record of 574.8 kilometers an hour. That is 357.2 miles an hour, and people really came from across the country to witness this feat, and to say they were proud is an understatement.
574,8 km/h. Je répète, 574,8 km/h.
Ah, c'est une merveille.
C'est formidable, c'est
un
impensable.
instant pendant lequel on est fiers d'être français, parce qu'on ne l'est pas toujours. Mais là, félicitations à tous ceux qui ont participé.
J'ai l'impression que vous avez les larmes aux yeux.
Oui, monsieur, exactement.
C'est le truc français, le cocorico. Regardez, il y a des drapeaux bleu, blanc, rouge qui sont au-dessus de la voie ferrée.
So Cocorico, like the rooster, which is the symbol of France, and the TGV really has been an enormous success story for France, and it makes me kind of want to hop on a train.
Me too. Honestly, I recommend the TGV to anyone to do it at least once. It's quite an experience. Florence Villemano, thank you so much for that. Don't forget, if you have your own questions about anything French, you can always reach out to Flo at Flo Villemano, and she'll try to get to it in a new French Connections.